What's up, Preston? My name's Dillon Einbund, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. Here to talk to you a little bit about my entertainment experience. Let's get into it. I originally started in the film industry by assisting a line producer. Now, the term producer is pretty vague. You've probably heard it a lot in music and film and television. But a line producer is the one that's on the show. They're managing everything on the ground, from actors to crew members to vendors to locations. And they're making sure everything stays on schedule and on budget. So that was my first experience. It was basically like diving into the deep end. As a line producer's assistant, you have to do anything and everything. You know the old cliche, go get the producer or director a coffee? There's a lot of truth to that. So that job was largely like being a sponge. I got to be in a lot of meetings and I didn't exactly know what was what at first. I didn't know all the industry jargon, but I just took vigorous notes and I started to get things little by little. I was also exposed to working on set in various places in Los Angeles and the Hawaiian island of Oahu. When you're working with crew members, you have to realize that these are not people that all work at a company together. Everyone's a freelancer. So you have lots of different types of personalities. All of the different people that it takes to make a film happen behind the screens is incredible. You're talking hundreds, if not thousands of people. All of the different departments have their specialty. The costume department, makeup department, special effects, visual effects, camera, construction, art department, you name it. These are highly specialized fields, and each department has their own subculture. As a producer, you have to know how to work with every single department, and you have to be sensitive to the different needs and demands of that particular department. My communication studies degree really came in handy because when you're talking to different departments, you have to be aware of their particular situation. And also, you don't have the luxury of allowing cooler heads to prevail. So you have to be sure that you are being timely, but not too abrupt. You are being firm when it's called for, but not putting people off under already very stressful situations. If you're looking to get involved in the film industry, there's lots of different routes that you could take. If you know for sure that you want to be a director, getting on set as a set PA is definitely the way to go. If you want to be a producer, getting in the office as an office PA is also a way to go. If you're not in LA, New York, or London, you might have a hard time finding a gig as a producer's assistant, but that doesn't mean that there's not commercials or social media oriented shoots that are available to you. So I'd suggest starting off working on a smaller scale. You could also start off by doing your own projects. I went to Cal State University Long Beach. I did communication studies. It taught me a lot about interpersonal communication, public speaking, giving presentations, and writing. Looking back on it, I didn't have a solid plan. When you're in school, it's really hard to determine exactly what you want to do. However, it's good to start crafting your own individual story. That story is going to be the common thread that's going to carry you through your entire work experience. You want that story to shine through everything. Your experience counts. Your skills count. People want to know the facts and timeline of your experience. However, they also want a story. The story is what's going to connect all the dots and also indicate where you're trying to go. I currently work in production at HBO. For some of you who are unfamiliar, HBO has produced shows such as Game of Thrones, The Sopranos, and Sex and the City. I currently work in production in HBO as an executive assistant. I support a production executive. Now, HBO produces a handful of shows, and for each show, there's a production executive that oversees everything from start to finish with the show. So how does the process work? Well, when a script or just a loose idea is presented to the studio, the creative team either goes back and forth with the writer themselves or their representation, such as their agent or manager. From there, if the HBO creative team likes a project, they go ahead and give it the green light. Once creative goes ahead with a project that they like, it's then production's job to step in and figure out how we're going to make it. Production is the logistics arm of the company. What's the timeline? What's the budget? Where are we going to shoot it and how? As you may or may not already be aware, being a fan of something and working in the industry is sometimes two entirely different things. The thing about working in production is that you have to be very detail oriented, you have to know how to deal with many different types of personalities, you have to be willing to work long hours. The job is very demanding and it can be high pressure. You have to spin a lot of plates all at once. So it's important that you keep track of many different details, and when you're working in an assistant role such as myself, you need to also keep track of your work and your boss's world. What's really rewarding about my job is that when you read a script, it's kind of like reading a novel. The story and characters are really interesting, but how do you get that from the pages to the screen? Production might not always be viewed as a completely creative department, but what we're doing is creatively figuring out how to take what's on the page and bring it to the screen. The thing about production is that you work really long hours and irregular hours too. I thought I had it bad when I was on a film shoot in Hawaii, working an all-night shoot, but then I talked to my friend who was working on set in Chicago in -5 degrees Fahrenheit. In production, they take really good care of their crew members, but it is a very mentally and physically demanding job. Yes, it's fun, it's creative, you get to meet a lot of amazing people, and if you're lucky, go work on distant locations, but you have to be able to remain nimble and you have to have thick skin. Historically, film and TV has been a little bit slow to adopt new technology, but we're reaching a state where there's a lot of amazing emerging technology coming to the forefront, and it's allowing us to make shows even bigger, even better, and on a global scale. Now has never been a better time to get into this industry. To quote Game of Thrones, chaos is a ladder. There's an extremely high demand for content from the various streaming platforms and studios, and there's a lot of change in the industry with new jobs available due to emerging technology. There's lots of different ways that you can get your foot in the door, and it's operating on a global scale. As you may be able to hear, there's a plane flying overhead. I want to use this as an example to show that oftentimes when you're shooting, nothing goes according to plan. There are many obstructions along the way, but again, you have to be nimble. You have to be able to adapt to challenges. You can't get frustrated when things don't go your way. It's not only rewarding to see your work on screen, but you also know the backstory of what went into making that happen. Sometimes a few second shot might have taken a whole day of shooting. So some of my finishing thoughts would be to identify where you want to go when you're in university. However, with all of the options available to you these days and not entirely knowing what you want to do potentially for the rest of your life, just try to look inward and create a personal story and a personal brand that will sell you. That's going to be the common thread that carries you through your career for the long term and really tells a story when you're just listing your experience on a CV. Really want to thank you for the opportunity to get to share my experience with you. I hope that you gained something valuable from it. Best of luck in your studies, best of luck in your career, and I'll see you on the red carpet soon. Take care.